What's going on, people? Welcome to One More Watch, Please. Today, I'm excited to introduce a very special guest, the founder of both Straton Watches and Signum Watches, Kyle. Known for merging the love of vintage motorsports with quality watchmaking, Straton Watches has carved out a distinct identity in the watch industry with designs that resonate with cars and watch enthusiasts. On the other hand, Signum Watches explores different inspirations and delivers unique timepieces that captivates the modern collector. With an eye for detail, a passion for high quality craftsmanship, and a relentless drive to innovate, Kyle has made a notable mark in the watch world. And today, we are going to dive into the journey behind these brands, explore the challenges, inspirations, and future of Straton and Signum watches. Also, Kyle has been really kind to offer the viewers a 10% exclusive discount for the viewers of this channel. And he's also going to be showing a new watch exclusive to the viewers. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Kyle. Hey Kyle, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Ankit. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I had a pretty busy day at work, but was looking forward to speaking with you about your brand. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
something sort of keeps me going in the evening.
likewise, likewise. We both have kids, so they're in bed now, so we've got time to discuss some
Yeah,
watches
yeah. I
and
normally do it after
my
10
story.
o'clock. Yeah, I normally do this after 10 o'clock. But yeah, my wife was kind enough to help with the kids tonight, so I could fit this
Cool,
in.
cool. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So why don't we start by telling the viewers something about your background and how did you get into watchmaking?
So maybe we can go right back to how I sort of sparked interest in watches. I got given a Lanco dress watch when I was 11 years old by my grandparents, my Oma and Opa from my dad's side. And it was, as I said, a Lanco dress watch, quartz, still got it. And ever since then, I sort of collected watches on the side. And funnily enough, one of my first watch businesses, quite funny and quirky story, but you know those claws those machines that catch teddy bears mostly?
Yeah.
So I was in the boarding house, so boarding school in Cape Town, South Africa. That's where I grew up, and I was always looking for ways of making extra money. So I basically figured out how these machines worked. So the owner can set how many times, and if there's a certain amount of time, like I figured out that the machines where this guy set up in his locations, and he had some watches in them, like cheap watches. And I figured out every eighth turn, if you got the watch properly, it would keep the claw closed.
Yeah.
So I knew if I took like a certain amount of money, I could get a certain amount of watches. And one of the kitchen staff who worked in the boarding house, who was cooking food for us in the boarding house, she was my buyer. And I would go in the week and catch 2 or 3 watches. And my markup was like 500%. So I was making, I was making good pocket money at like 16 years old. And, that was my, my first little quirky watch business, but sort of my interest in watches was always there. And, my first sort of then introduction into a proper business was, I found sort of unknown brands, and this is in 2011, late 2011, 2012. And I would buy the watches. They were mostly unknown brands, and send them to South Africa and sell them via an online platform, South Africa's version of like eBay, which is called
Yeah.
Bid or Buy. And it took off in quite a big way pretty quickly. I wasn't expecting it, but I started off with 10 watches, and I put them, by that time, sorry, just so that you know, I'd already moved to Switzerland in 2010 for family reasons. So it wasn't for watch reasons that I moved to
Yeah.
Switzerland. And I had a full-time job, always have, even till today, I still have a full-time job on the side of running Straton and Signum. And I basically bought my first bunch of 10 watches, sent them to South Africa, put the adverts on Bid or Buy, the website, and just saw what happened. And to my surprise, it took off. And in about my third month, I was doing about 250 watches a month. It just took off in a big way. I saw a gap in the market where I think people were tired of I was in the fashion watch segment then, so they were tired of like the Diesels and
Yeah.
Tommy Hilfigers and Calvin Kleins and all this. So it wasn't that affordable, and it took off, and I did that for about 3 years. And then in early 2014, I always wanted to start my own brand, but the issue was, you need to design one watch and then you need to have it produced. And the minimum order quantity is 300 even back then. And you need to put the money down. This is before sort of crowdfunding started in early 2014. You had Indiegogo then, but it sort of started to pick up. And then at that time, Kickstarter wasn't available to Swiss project creators, only Swiss project supporters. Mm-hmm. So, luckily in early 2015, in April 2015, Kickstarter then allowed Swiss projects as creators. So I preferred Kickstarter as a platform to Indiegogo. And I think I sort of got in at exactly the right time. Because the South African watch business was in a decline as the value in South Africa's currency. When I started, just to give you an example, when I started, it was about 7 Rand to $1 in 2011 or something like that. And by the time it reached 2014, it had doubled. So I lost a big portion of my margin. I couldn't work on a $50 margin, profit margin anymore, per watch. And as a buyer and seller, so I was looking for other ways of, I'd really like to start my own brand. So, Kickstarter came up, and I was toying with the idea of, I grew up in a household where a modest, hardworking family, don't come from any money or anything like that, but just a normal middle class, hardworking family. My parents had their own business, and my dad enjoyed classic cars, nothing expensive, just Alfa Romeos. Maybe you can say you need money to fix them, but anyway, that sort of rubbed off on me, and I always had a love and affinity for classic cars and racing. And at that time, I'd also, by that time I had quite a collection of like 70s chronographs, cheap ones, which had the Venus, the Valjoux 7733 manual wind chronograph movement. And, they were sort of going for around $200-300 at the time. The market hadn't picked up by then. Now those watches are over 1,000, some even 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 on the market today. And I brought those ideas of 70s chronographs, my love for cars, and created Straton. And basically in a nutshell, the first watch was inspired by my 1977 Alfa Romeo, which is a Alfetta GT, which is a GDV shape. And I can still remember when I started the campaign, and, I had no experience in videography or photography, and I did all the photography myself. I shot the video on an iPhone 4. Literally, I was in the Swiss mountains with a tripod, with the iPhone on it. I pressed record, got in the car, drove up the road, left the tripod there because I was all alone, and drive past, go back down the hill, come back, and then, then I taped the iPhone to my side window to get the side angle, and, then I tried to figure out how to do the video, because in Kickstarter you need to have a presentation video. So I had to learn video editing, which I never did in my life before. And basically I was on a shoestring budget of $2,500 all in, including prototypes, including advertising, everything. I was really on a shoestring budget. And because I just wanted to see, what happens. And my goal was 15K, for 30 days, 1 month. And I would have been happy if I reached that, over the moon. And to my surprise, I hit that within the first hour. And yeah, I get goosebumps even now, thinking back to that time. It was an incredible feeling. And yeah, I was just blown away by the support. I think what happened is it was right timing. Sure, there wasn't that boom of, so many watch brands on Kickstarter. So I got in at just the right time. And I also think the people resonated with my story. Because I think if you want to be successful on Kickstarter, you can have a fantastic product, but if people can't relate to it somehow, there needs to be some type of story and something that's believable and relatable. So, and I think the combination of everything just worked, and yeah, ended up on 157,000 after
Wow.
30 days. I think I sold 650 pieces or something like that, and which was far beyond my expectation. And yeah, that basically started the Straton
That's all.
journey.
That's almost like 10 times.
Yeah, it's 1,000%. It's 1,000% on my initial goal.
That's
And
brilliant.
but what was amazing is 48 hours before the end of the campaign. Normally when you see Kickstarter campaigns today, they even shortened the time now, because you see a big rise, and then usually it pans out, and then even maybe a
Yeah.
dip at the end. Mine sort of did this, and then this, and then slowly, and then it's planed out. And what happened is with 48 hours to go, I was, I think, just over 100K in funding. And there was a YouTube channel which I followed, called Petrolicious. They do sort of like 10-minute videos of owners of their classic car and their car, and they present the car and the owner, and they do sort of like a little interview. And I think they had about 800,000 subscribers at the time, but they also had a website where they did articles, etc. And I contacted the owner at the time of Petrolicious. He's an Alpha guy. And I told him my story. And he said, Carl, we too busy. Because I wasn't going to pay. I couldn't pay
Yeah.
for anything, right? And with about, I think it was a week to go before the end of the campaign, I contacted him again and I said, look what happened to the campaign. It absolutely blew up. I wanted 15K. We're now on, almost 100,000. Is there something we can do? I think people have sort of resonated with the story, and that's how it's gotten this funding. And he was like, wow, okay, let's do it. So they did an article, and it went live 48 hours before the end of the campaign. And I basically did from 100 to 157 in 48 hours. So I did like 50K in funding in the
Yeah.
last 48 hours, just because of that, piece of, an editorial that they did in their website about my story.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because one of the brands I was working with currently, they were short like last few £100 of the goal, and I posted a
Yeah,
story on Instagram, and within few hours they met the goal. Like
fantastic.
sometimes just a post can help someone.
Yeah, truly. Maybe just to carry on from that, after the campaign ended, I didn't even have a website. Even during the campaign, even before the campaign, I didn't have a website. I only had Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a landing page where you can sign up to email lists, nothing. Once the Kickstarter ended, because of the article, there were still people who missed the deadline that wanted to order. So now I'm like, well, what do I do? So I Googled and found Shopify, and literally within like 6 hours, I had built a basic Straton website. I got it
Yeah.
live, and I could start accepting orders. And then to my surprise, one of the guys who supported the project, the campaign, sorry, he was an editor for the Financial Times in the Nordic region. I think it was Norway or something like that. And I suddenly started seeing like quite large amounts of orders coming in from Norway and the Scandinavian region. I was like, well, what's going on? Then the next minute, one of the customers said, "Oh, I saw an article of you in the Financial Times," and it was it was one of the people who supported the project. He was an editor for the Financial Times, and decided to do an article on the story of how my campaign went crazy. And then it's the power of marketing too is extremely important for the success of a brand. Because as I said, you can have the best looking product. If nobody knows about it, you're not going to be successful.
Cool. I think that's a really good story about your first brand. How did Signum start?
So maybe I can give a bit of insight into sort of why a second brand. Isn't one enough, or Straton's very niche, retro race inspired watches, very specific aesthetic. A dive watch, so to say, doesn't really fit with the brand's identity, right? And I'm a creative person. I design all the watches that I make. And I always had a love and affinity for minerals and stones, rocks. It just doesn't matter. Archaeology. I'm a big archaeology
Yeah.
fan, Egypt, etc. And as a kid, I collected those magazines that came out monthly with a little box, and you got a mineral with each, edition. And I collected
Yeah.
in a whole bunch. And so I thought, with the experience that I've had, I think it would be somewhat easier to launch a second brand. And that was in 2020. So I'd already been running Straton for 5 years. And I think if people know me, I'm quite active in Facebook and in the groups. So I enjoy the community. And, the microbrand space is exciting. There's things happening, people doing things. And I came up with the idea of Signum and wanted to launch sort of a brand that had more of a wider appeal than Straton's sort of narrow niche aesthetic.
Yeah.
So opened up to, the dive watch category is the biggest in terms of size. It's just, I don't know, people just can never have enough divers. They'll have 10
Yeah. I love
divers and
dive watches.
maybe one chronograph. I'm the opposite. I have 10 chronographs and one diver, but, so yeah, that was the idea of Signum, and I wanted to be, affordable. So I came out and pushed those boundaries in terms of unique materials. So, extremely difficult process of, I would find the actual specimens. I wouldn't go and dig them, but I would find the actual specimens, and, then it was this process. Now, how do we take that specimen and make a watch dial out of it?
Yeah.
And it was a very intense process because each mineral, etc., is different in composition. So there's various levels of difficulty in terms of how do you get that dial stabilized so that it doesn't crack or break. Because, you're drilling these thin, small dials of 0.4 millimeters. And one of the ones which I did was Labradorite. which is beautiful mineral, actually from Canada, from labradorite. So
Yeah.
it changes color as you move the angle of light. And basically what they do is you put it in a type of resin, a binding agent, for a week to stabilize the specimen. And then after that's done, the cylinder drill drills actual cylinders of,
Yeah.
dial. And then from that cylinder, the small
Slice off. Yeah.
slices are then created. But it doesn't stop there, because there are various things like, we found out a dry piece of labradorite doesn't really shimmer, but if you wet it, if it's wet, the color comes out a lot more. So this was the next form of experimentation: is how do I get that dial to shimmer as much as possible? And what we did is like a layer of paint, reflective paint, and then we also had a backing on that then went onto the copper backing for a dial. And extremely time consuming process, just that process of the first minerals that we did, some of which were a first for any watch brand, which I would say I'm quite proud of, because it's really a difficult process to do. My manufacturer didn't like me very much because it was, in some cases you had like 70% breakages. So from 100%, 70% were non-usable, and the other 30% you could use, but you had to pay for all the work of creating the dials, right? Not the complete dials, but just the raw form before they drilled for indexes. So yeah, that was sort of a bit of insight into Signum. And I, in a nutshell, wanted to create sort of affordable watches with unique, either man-made or unique dials. So again, when I say unique, Jody from Just One More Watch started the Loom Wars series.
Yeah.
And been a long time supporter with Jody. I think he had less than 10,000 subscribers when I first met him, and I said to him, Jody, with Signum, I want to create a watch and win Loom Wars. That was my goal in, I think it was 2020, 21, 22. And yeah, that's when I created the Signum Kudo full looms, and yeah, basically killed off Loom Wars, ended the series. And yeah, so today I basically, before I would launch maybe 1 to 2 watches per year per brand. And this year I sort of changed things quite a bit. So in the coming months, you're going to see quite a few more watches coming from both brands. We were aiming for 1 new watch per brand per month. I think in the beginning it was a little bit ambitious, because there are always sort of, production delays, etc. And, I'm someone who doesn't like to do things halfway. If I'm not happy with something, I'd rather delay it, have it remade, than launch something that I'm not really happy with. So I think it's exciting times to come.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose if you launch a watch every month, that also affects your marketing capabilities. Like, when you send the watches to reviewers and stuff like that, normally it takes a couple of months for, like, for example, there are number of reviewers in the UK. If you pass on to each of them, then it takes a good few months for them to complete the reviews and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Reviews are important. But as you say, it's not always possible with that type of schedule. If you're launching 1 watch per month, you can't expect reviewers to do 1 review per month from your brand. I think people will get a bit sick and tired if it's too much. Yeah,
it's kind of hard to keep up for the audience as well.
Yeah,
if you're launching something every month.
Sure, because the market is it is, so to say, saturated. There's a lot of brands launching. I think it's becoming more and more difficult to start a brand. You've really got to offer something, unique. It's not just about being cheap. I think the race to the bottom of the pricing sort of scale is the wrong way to approach this, because if you price too low, you will go out of business. Yeah, you need to price yourself so that you're able to grow. If you can't grow and you can't support your customers and you can't, honor your 2-year guarantee, if that's what you have. I've seen some brands launch a watch at, making $40, $50 profit a watch. If you're doing that, if one customer returns, you've lost your profit. If one customer returns for a repair, you're losing money.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for people who are considering, launching their own brand is don't focus on the price, focus on what can you offer that's different or unique to something else that's on the market today.
Yeah, definitely. People are like, I've realized that people in the watch community, they're not always after the cheapest watch. They're more after the overall package that the company provides.
Yeah.
Cool. Now that I've heard the story behind both of your brands, I'm really excited to see some of your watches.
Sure.
So which watches have you got for us today?
Quite a few. I think maybe we can start with I think from Straton's side, the model which has been a staple seller since 2017, which is the Straton Speciale. So it's that TV dial, typical 70s. It comes with 2 movements. I also sell the strap. It's not the original strap that comes on the watch, but it's called the Rapido strap. It's quite unique. The Speciale comes in 2 movements, so it comes in a Mecha quartz from Seiko, and then in this one it has the Swiss Valjoux 7750. And they're priced at $499 USD and $1199 USD respectively.
Yeah.
And I think 1,200 US for a Swiss powered automatic is perfectly reasonable for the market. Yeah. So
yeah, that's a very, very unique dial. I love that.
Unique, and then maybe we go to the next scale of unique, which for Straton caused quite a bit of a stir. So this is called the Cuff Buster, which is it's a 70s design, which I saw from De Soto's, and basically it was created for pilots and racing drivers who wore long sleeve jackets. And if you wear it, you don't need to pull your sleeve to tell the time. And, yes, it's quirky. Yes, you can say, I know it's, and even in today's market, it's stupid, but, I love it. I think it's a fantastic, super quirky, cool 70s design. I think this embodies what the 70s were in terms of design, being bold, being different. I mean, I couldn't imagine having something like this in 1970s on your wrist. You must have looked like an alien spaceship. You probably do even now. I sometimes get funny looks when I wear it, even with a short sleeve shirt.
Yeah,
outside.
I don't think that's stupid at all. I think that's a perfect watch for winters.
Truly, you're 100% right. I've had many customers who supported the launch and who wrote me back afterwards. I mean, the first thing most people say is, well, I can't move my wrist. You can. Your wrist won't break. The watch simply moves with your wrist when you pull it back. Yes, does it feel a bit weird? Yes, but it's not going to break your wrist, and you can move your wrist around, etc. And they wrote me after receiving it, and in the colder months they used it and said, it's absolutely perfectly functional for the reason it was made.
Yeah.
You can tell the time without pulling your sleeve back. And in winter, you do. You have to pull your sleeve back to tell the time if your watch is underneath, right? So it works. It works. So those are sort of two you know, I got a few others here. This is the Yacht Racer, which has basically the same movement as a Tag Heuer caliber 12, which is the ETA 2894 stroke 2. This is my most expensive watch.
That's really nice.
Yeah, the movement alone costs $750, and this watch goes for, I think, 1,399 US at the moment.
That's
So,
still very reasonable.
I mean, for what it is, just the movement alone, it's top
Yeah.
grade, fully decorated, limited edition. I think it has a lot of value. And maybe I'll give your viewers an exclusive look into a watch which I think for me holds quite a bit of value, or the design itself. So basically, after Straton's first campaign, the first watch inspired by my Alfa Romeo was very, in terms of design, because I was limited by my budget, I couldn't really go to the lengths of where I wanted to. And that's where I launched the Curve Chrono. There's a story there too. It was my second campaign. It was actually originally called the Targa because the Curva was a 70s chronograph design which was paying homage to the Targa Florio road race in Italy.
Yeah.
And I'd had the prototypes, everything, 24 hours before the launch. One of the potential customers wrote me and he said, Kyle, just please check again on the trademark register whether the word Targa is allowed to be used for watches. I had done an international search and couldn't find anything. But then when I searched on the German side, Porsche had secured the rights to the word Targa for watches. So 24 hours before the launch, I had to call the launch off. And I was completely devastated. I still remember, even again, I get goosebumps thinking of these moments, going back. And what I did is I turned that whole situation into something positive. So I informed all the customers and everything I had built. I told them the complete story. And I said, look, we need to find a new name. So I got the supporters and the customers involved in picking the new name for the watch. And that's where we came up with Curve, which means corner. Yeah. And it has, I think, 175 corners or something in the Targa Florio road, or even more. I can't remember, but it's quite a lot. And that's where the Curve launched. And that was in 2016. And it's a watch where I could really, in terms of design, express my aesthetic of like a dream watch. Mm-hmm. And that sold out. I brought it, I made 3 productions and that sold out in around 2020. And this year, so just as an exclusive, I'm launching a Mark II version, which is 42 millimeter. And it's powered by an NE86 Seiko column wheel chronograph. And this is it right here. So it's got like there's quite a bit of reflection from the light. It has got AR coating. I could see it, but just, there we go. Sort of a mustard yellow dial. So it's an automatic chronograph. And it's going to be priced at 899 US. And that's a lot of value for an automatic chronograph on the market today. So that's
really nice.
One of my future releases. It's not launched yet. And I've only been showing sort of real snippets of the watch. So your viewers are already the first to see the complete watch. So that's Signum. That's Straton. I've got a few Signum pieces here. This is the Signum Siege, which is my take on a playful field design. And it's got a green copper turquoise mineral dial. So it's turquoise mineral stone with small pieces of sort of copper veins in it. And it's really thin, so it's only, without the crystal, it's 10 millimeters. And then it's got this box sapphire crystal, which I love. And that's sort of a fun and quirky watch. And maybe to give you your viewers, I'm launching Signum's next watch on the 31st of October, which is this coming Thursday. I'm not sure when this video will go live, but this will be the Signum Cuda Bronze Cathedral. So it comes in two colors. That's the brown Cathedral, and then we've got the blue here, which is
Yeah, I think this is the watch that sort of attracted me towards the brand, and that's the reason Kyle is here right now on the podcast.
okay. Cool. So yeah, this has so it's just for your viewers and people watching. It's not an actual mosaic dial. I have other watches I launched a few months back, which has an actual mosaic. Unfortunately, these stained glass designs, it's almost impossible to get these small little pieces, each individual, because they need to be cut. If it's possible, it would cost like over 10,000 just for the dial. And I'm not in that category or to create that. I don't even think somebody will really attempt such small, I think if it can be done in a bigger setting, but basically it's a form of printing, and then we put a glass covering over it. And then the bezel is really nice. It's mother of pearl, and then it's got an acrylic covering in it. And it really shimmers nicely in the sun at certain angles. People who have got the same watch with the same bezel on the mosaic dials, on the ones I launched a few months ago, got lots of comments on that bezel and how it sort of shimmers in the light. So yeah, that's some watches, and then I've got some other ones here. Steel Cuda, which is a diver. That's an orange full lume dial.
Yeah.
And it comes in various bezel designs, and yeah.
Cool. Those were some really nice watches. Thanks for showing
Thanks a
the
lot.
really cool watches and the exclusive look of the new watch.
Yeah, thanks. I thought I'd include that just as, yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate that. So if any of the viewers wants to buy one of those watches, how do they reach out to your brands?
Sure. So, yeah, the two websites, Straton is www.stratonwc.com, and Signum is www.signumwatches.com, all in one. And yeah, or they can reach out directly. It's only me. So if anybody, messages via email or Instagram or Facebook, they'll get an answer from me. So
cool. And I'll put all the links in the description as well, so you don't have to memorize everything.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. And
cool.
Maybe just as, happy to include a discount code for your followers. We can chat about that after, and you can include that in the description.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Cool.
And to wrap things up, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own watch brand?
I think what I would say is there should be a genuine interest and love for watches. I think if the person's thinking of doing this just for money, the microbrand segment is the wrong target market. I would say if you really want to go large scale, maybe look at the fashion sort of segment, which is already very saturated. Maybe the market's sort of ready for another disruptive Daniel Wellington style of watch. I think we might see a disruptor in that space again, like Daniel Wellington was 10 years ago. It was around the time when I started. But I think if the microbrand space, I think if you have a genuine passion and enthusiasm for watches, and you have a cool or relatable story or design, it can also be, your story could also be the innovation side. I think it's become more and more difficult to launch a dive watch, which is just a dive watch.
Yeah.
I think the brands today really need to offer something, where they're pushing the boundaries, trying something different, trying something unique. Yeah. And I think if you don't innovate and, sort of maybe even focus on a niche to start with, I think, that's why I think Straton in its own right was successful, because it focuses on a specific niche and caters to a certain aesthetic.
Yeah.
And, Signum, it might be dive watches, and I do some other watches too in for Signum, chrono and a dress watch and a field watch. But I think if you're offering something different, your chances are higher of success, and become, involved in the community. I see sometimes, people join the groups in Facebook and they've launched their campaign or their pre-order already, and it's the first time hearing of them. If that's the case, I think it's too late. I think you need to get involved and be, in the community and get to know people. I mean, networking, I did the same with Straton just before launching Straton. So that was part of the reason to, also, the community helped me and gave me feedback on my design, before I launched. I had an horrendous logo to start off with. And through posting in the Facebook watch group, I got feedback, took that on board, redesigned the logo, and I honestly can say that was part of the success of it too. So
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I like about microbrand, is they actually listen to the feedback. Whereas the big brands are all about, I just see big brands are just relaunching their old models with slight twists.
Yeah, I actually think microbrands are the cause of the bigger brands doing relaunches of especially retro style and their older catalog.
Yeah.
Microbrands were some of the first before the rise of the bigger brands doing the same thing, of relaunching sort of especially the retro aesthetic of watches. But I think also it can be a bit as a brand owner, when you're asking for feedback, it's really difficult. You can't expect to please everybody. So when you ask for feedback, you really need to, in the end, make it a choice for yourself. What do you take on board and what not? Because you simply can't please everybody. Yeah. And you need to have a bit of a hard skin in this game, because, people can be, it is the internet after all. So sometimes people can be cruel or you need to have a thick skin and just, you can't please everybody. People are going to have different tastes, etc. Yeah. And they might not like that watch, but they might like another one. Yeah.
Cool. That's a really good piece of advice. Thank you for that.
No worries.
Thanks for joining us today. It's been really fun talking to you, and it's been really nice seeing all your watches, and especially the new ones.
Cool. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
Cool.